the World Trade Center towers in New York City and causing them to plummet to the ground. One airliner hit the Pentagon and several hundred people were killed. Another never reached its target, whatever that might have been. And we all know the details of what happened. But our minds cry out to know why it happened. In fact, it seems to me in America we are obsessed with why things happen. Whenever there is an airplane crash, whenever there is a crime of newspaper proportions, we want to know why these things happen. We have all of these agencies and all of the analysts and psychologists and criminologists, people who study all of the details trying to find a motive for why these things happen. Why do people do these kinds of things? I want to try to give you answers to that. We know why on a superficial level. We now know that there is a very highly developed, sophisticated group of terrorists in the Middle East who are the superficial, the immediate why. Intelligence sources indicate to us that it's not just one person. Osama bin Laden, who has come to be known to all of us by name, is perhaps the point man in the actual structure of the events that led to this disaster, but he seems to be backed up by people like Saddam Hussein and who knows how many others in the Middle East are a part of this massive network. This then immediately catapults us into the land of the Bible. These terrorists weren't Norwegian, and they weren't Argentine, and they weren't Mexican, and they weren't German, and they weren't Chinese. They were Middle Easterners. What is it that motivates them to perpetrate such unthinkable atrocities? And we all remember that they tried this one other time, not from the top of the tower, but from the bottom. Previous effort to bomb the World Trade Center. We've been made very much aware in recent years of the rash of terrorist attacks against American bases, American barracks, American forces in the Middle East and other places. We've also become very much aware of suicide bombers blowing up pizza parlors and blowing themselves up frequently in Israel. We've been asking questions about what makes people do this and why does it happen. And now the question is more compelling than ever because it involves us. And not only does it involve us because of what happened Tuesday, it involves us because the possibility is that what happened Tuesday there could happen on any other day anywhere else. As our Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, said, we cannot stop all of the tactics of all of the terrorists all of the time. Well, first of all, let me dive into one category that we have to begin with, and that is there is a natural reason for this. A natural reason. Sociologists in modern days and psychologists have been trying to convince us that man is basically good, but he is not. Man is basically evil. He is basically wicked. The heart of man is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, the Bible says, and who can know it? That is, who can figure it out? It is so desperately wicked. Romans chapter 3, verses 10 and following describe man as a poisonous snake, describe man as a murderer whose feet are swift to shed blood. One only needs to look at human history. It is a veritable bloodbath. And it is nonetheless a bloodbath today. All over the face of the earth, on every continent, there is the shedding of blood. Not only in individual acts of criminality, but in corporate acts of criminality, national acts of criminality. Man is by nature a killer. We see it in the wars of the world. We see it in the terrorist actions of the world. We see it in the tribal battles. We see it everywhere. We see it on the streets of the cities of the world. Man is a killer. First crime recorded in the Bible was recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 4. Cain murdered his brother. And he launched human life with that ignoble beginning. Why does this happen? Let's turn to James chapter 4. James is an epistle in the New Testament. The Bible, inspired by God, comes to us in a series of books, 66 of them. Human Authors writing under the inspiration of God recorded for us a true understanding of those things God wanted us to know. We come into the 4th chapter of the book of James, and the question is posed to us. It's the very same question that we are asking, that our culture is asking, that our world is asking. The chapter begins with this: what is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? Why do these things happen? Why is there murder? Why is there war? Why are there quarrels and conflicts at every level? The answer comes: is not the source your pleasures that wage war in your members? Members simply refers to your person, your body, your nature. It is the pleasures inside of you that generate war. What is the source of quarrels? That's the Greek word polemos. It means a prolonged state of conflict. What is the source of conflict? That's make, separate individual fights. What causes wars? What causes those separate fights and conflicts? It comes down to this. It is your pleasures. The word adone in the Greek, from which we get hedonism. What is hedonism? It is the yearning of self-love. It is the yearning to fulfill what you want. A hedonist is someone who lives for the fulfillment of his own self-love. He lives to satisfy himself, to get what he wants, to take what fulfills him. That's why wars happen, because people want things, and somebody stands in the way. Verse 2 further develops it. You lust, and you don't have. That's the problem. You want it. You have this hedonistic compulsion, this drive, and it's thwarted. You want it. It's a war inside of you. That's how much you want it. And something is in the way, and that something is a someone, and because you want it so badly and you can't have it, you commit murder. That's the reason. That's the natural reason. Personal gratification. Out of control, unsatisfied. So you commit murder. That's why people kill. They're not basically good, they're basically evil. And if we didn't have laws and law enforcement, the whole of humanity would be killing itself wholesale all the time. People are driven by their own selfish desire. They're driven by their own need to fulfill their self-love. They're driven by a consuming hedonism. They're driven by the desire for pleasure and satisfaction and fulfillment. And anyone in the way may have to be sacrificed to that desire. You ask yourself, why does a mother drown her 5 children? Because they're in the way of her fulfillment. They're in the way of her satisfaction. Why did those people in Jedwabne in Poland in one day massacre 1,600 Jews in their village that they had lived with for a period of 300 years? They'd been living together. They worked together. They went to school together. In a 2-week period, they determined to move from being neighbors to being murderers. They killed all 1,600 in one day. Why? Was it race? Was it the hatred of the Jewish race? No, they never were so propagandized. All that happened was the Germans came into their town and said, you can kill them if you want and take their land and take their possession and take their farms, and they did it. Just give them permission. That's the human heart. Why does a Russian young man in Sacramento kill his family? Because they stood in the way of his fulfillment. They stood in the way of his satisfaction. That's why people kill. Why does Hitler massacre the Jews? Because he saw them standing in the way of his Aryan supremacy. Why does Joseph Stalin massacre millions more? Because they stood in the way of his world empire. It may be as vast as that. It may be as simple as a mother who kills her children because she can't find satisfaction. They're in the way of it. You can't have what you want. He goes on to say, and so verse 2 says, you fight and you quarrel because you do not have something you want. And then he adds that amazing statement, and you don't have what you want because you don't ask. Or you ask and you don't receive it because you ask with wrong motives, that you can spend it on your own hedonistic self-love. That's why people kill, because they want something and somebody stands in the way. Whether you kill on a small scale or whether you kill on a large scale, the wicked hearts of passionate people who will not be denied their pleasure kill to get it. That is the natural pathology of the human heart. Driven to extreme acts of murder by passions that are so consuming as to be on the border of madness.